And we can ask our next guest that, John Fanta, who does college football and college basketball for the Fox family of networks. Follow him on Twitter at John_Fanta. John, thanks again for your time. And, well, how long has this year seemed to you?
Well, I've been around. I'm 25 years old, and it's felt like that lifetime. It has literally felt like that entire lifetime. You guys put up 1, 3, 5, 10. I'm gonna use option E. All of the above plus that.
We'll have to have a new poll question. E. John Fanta, 25.
John Fanta's lifetime is right. The other one. I'll tell you what, that second half of basketball had to seem like a lifetime for Xavier because they lived and died yesterday, right squarely on the bubble, and it burst on them yesterday in the Big East tournament.
It really did. This was the type of game, guys, where you come out, you're hitting threes. Xavier started 6 for 10 from beyond the arc, so you start to feel good about yourself, right? Offensively, things are clicking. Well, this time of year, if you fall in love with that three-point shot and you've got an underdog that's putting together some stops, things can change. They can change quickly. And if you know anything about Butler basketball, which I know you guys do, it's that they have always been predicated on just fighting. You know, this is a program. There's that whole cliche, the Butler way. But when you watch them play, and particularly I've had a chance to watch this in person over the years, it is a program that just plays gritty basketball. Not necessarily pretty, but they just find ways to stay in games. And they're a young team this year. This is far from upperclassmen or guys with a ton of experience. Their senior point guard, Aaron Thompson, is out for the year. And they have not stopped fighting. And yesterday they got their reward. For Xavier, ultimate heartbreak. The Musketeers are now on the wrong side of the bubble. They're going to miss the NCAA tournament in all likelihood. And for them just to collapse, really a bad loss because you're up by 19 in the second half. You've got the game won, and they just couldn't hang on. Credit to Chuck Harris. That's the name of the day for me. Chuck Harris, freshman guard for the Butler Bulldogs, went scoreless in the first half. He had 21 combined in the second half in overtime.
John, you're in the city. You're at the Garden for the Big East tournament. A lot of us from afar on paper looked at it and thought this of all the conference tournaments was the most wide open. Nova's the 1 seed, but they've got 2 big injuries. Creighton's had, off the court issues coming into the tournament. You've got UConn, St. John's, Seton Hall, many of them, fighting for bids. In fact, the Johnnies in Seton Hall with what could be a play-in game today. Does this, with Georgetown Nova later today, does this tournament feel as wide open as it looks?
Yes, it does. It does feel as wide open as it looks, with the main point that I would say, the main asterisk I would put next to that is UConn is playing the best basketball out of anybody in the 8 teams left. The Huskies have strung together wins over the recent weeks. They're the top defensive rebounding team in the Big East this season. And when you compile that with James Bouknight, who hasn't been healthy for this full season, so it's hard for the committee to evaluate the UConn Huskies. But when Bouknight's on the floor, everything changes for Connecticut. And that's because the constants are defense and rebounding. And when you factor in the star power of Bouknight, it's all just a trickle-down effect to the rest of that roster. Everybody else benefits. You're seeing other guys get confident in themselves. R.J. Cole, the Howard transfer at point guard, has really come on as of late, looks comfortable in his role. And Dan Hurley has this team picking up steam now in his 3rd year at the helm. So for me, it is wide open. But think about it, guys. UConn gets 11 seed DePaul in their first game. They basically have a walk to the semifinals in the Big East tournament. I think they really benefit as a result.
And today, some great basketball being played as well. And when you look at Creighton, John, how surprised were you that McDermott was reinstated for the Big East tournament? David, my co-host, thought maybe for the tournament. I was surprised it was this year. I guess it's a little easier that we're still in the COVID world, that there's not a regular press conference. That would be really awkward. But just how surprised were you that McDermott was reinstated?
Well, how about a regular fan base? How about a full venue? How would he have been received in New York City?
Right.
He doesn't have to deal with that. So that's what came to mind instantly for me. I am surprised. I'm more surprised than anything the fact that he coached the Villanova game last week and then got suspended for the Butler game. It didn't make a whole lot of sense to me, to be quite honest. It really did not. I didn't think that was handled the right way. And clearly that roster was divided at the time of the Villanova game. And if you're really going to put the things that he said first, you're not playing basketball and you're certainly not coaching basketball that night. That being said, Greg McDermott has built, up until those comments, which I'll get to in a moment, he has built an incredible partnership with the Omaha community and Creighton basketball over the last decade. So if there was a coach that was going to get reinstated in a situation like this, I guess I could see how we've gotten to this point. But that being said, you're suspended 4 days and now back coaching in 2021 after comments of just pain and inexcusable remarks, harsh remarks that were awful, to use the word plantation, jaw-dropping, and could not believe that those words were said. What kind of a lesson does it speak to your 18 to 22-year-old kids, and what kind of a model does it set that after a couple of days he's back on the sidelines coaching his team? That to me, it's something that only Creighton can answer, but it's the question that we all still have swirling, and you can't tell me his players aren't thinking about that as well. And that's why Creighton is the most curious case in the Big East tournament this week. They face Butler tonight. Butler, as I just said, is a gritty team. They're going to make you work for it. Creighton's going to have to work for it. Where's their mentality here? On a neutral floor, in the postseason, now their coach is back. How do they perform? Only they can answer that question. But this last week has surprised me.
He's John Fanta. He's part of the Fox broadcast family, covers the Big East a lot. He's in New York City at the Garden for the Big East tournament. You can follow John on Twitter at John_Fanta. John, does it feel as if the Big East is competing with the ACC for maybe the final spot in the field? And how ironic that it could come down to a Big East team versus Syracuse side by side as to which one we're going to put in the tournament. But you got Syracuse against Virginia. You've got the Johnnies against Seton Hall. To you, John, does that feel like a play-in game? Winners in, losers out, or whichever team wins needs to win one more?
Whichever team wins needs to win one more. But here's the caveat to that. Villanova is without their star point guard, Colin Gillespie, and in all likelihood, their sophomore standout, Justin Moore. So the winner of this game, in all likelihood, faces Villanova, but could face Georgetown. In fact, I will go out on a limb, gentlemen, to you today. I'm calling an upset.
Oh!
Eighth seed Georgetown is beating Villanova this afternoon. A big one for Patrick Ewing at the Garden. I'm going to go out on a limb. I got a gut feeling about this. I really like the way the Hoyas match up with Villanova. I could be dead wrong, and if I am, I'll eat my words. But I'm feeling a bit of an upset. I think the Hoya size could give Villanova problems. That being said, let's just say it goes chalk, okay? Let's just say it goes chalk. And it's Villanova. Villanova is nowhere near what they typically are because of the injuries, because of everything they've been through. So for me, the Seton Hall St. John's winner is in a very advantageous spot in this tournament to get another win tomorrow. These two teams are predicating on momentum. They're really into, hey, if one thing swings their way, everything seems to. So St. John's plays that 40 minutes of hell. It's up tempo. They were down 18-0 to Seton Hall this past Saturday, and they ended up commanding the Pirates. They ended up winning the game handily. 18-0 they were down, and they won the game handily, which shows you it's all or nothing for both these teams. That's what makes this playing game so fascinating, because I think it'll be nip and tuck. I think it'll be tight. But the winner of this game has a good draw, because Villanova, even though they're the number one seed in the Big East tournament, they're not playing like it, and they're very injured.
Well, that's the thing, John. You've mentioned it a couple times. Nova's injuries. Creighton, we all know, with McDermott. Which Big East team, skip this week, get me to next week, which Big East team, when the tournament starts, do you think has the best chance to make a run to the Final Four?
Connecticut, without question. James Bouknight gives me Kemba Walker vibes. They defend and rebound like there's no tomorrow. And this team has a senior cast of guys who are gritty and who hang in. I think R.J. Cole's really come on. I'll say his name again. I like the play of Adama Sanogo, 4-star freshman. Lately has been excellent in the paint. This UConn team makes you work for everything you're going to get. I mean, they guard you off the bus, and they're going to let you know about it. And when you combine that with Bouknight and the energy of them coming back into the Big East, I think they have a chance to make a really deep tournament run.
Granted, this is the kid who grew up in the Northeast talking here, but if Georgetown with the upset today, if you could have Georgetown and St. John's in a Big East semi, okay, that basketball city will be pounding on the doors going, come on, let us in.
They'll be outside. I said to somebody yesterday, they should put the game on MSG's marquee. You know, the big screen out from the Garden. Put the game on. Let the people social distance and watch.
Boy, you're on to something there, John. I think it would be a free-for-all if that were going on, because we know, unless they're all down here, John, because most of Manhattan is either in Boca or Naples right now. That's the only thing we know for certain. They are all heading south. You've done a lot of college hoop this year outside of the Big East, John. Who's a team that we're not talking about that you think we're going to be talking about because they're going to be in the Sweet 16 and everybody's going to go, why didn't we bring them up?
Yeah, I really, guys, think that West Virginia is the team that people don't talk enough about nationally, because Baylor has been at the top of the conversation. Texas has garnered national attention. You always think Kansas with Big 12. I just think that West Virginia is so carved out for success in the tournament. This team, efficiency-wise, from a metric standpoint, is in the top 20 offensively in the country, and that's different for Bob Huggins' team. Typically, he's going to press you. He's going to out-defend you. I like the fact they can score. They got a kid named Miles Deuce McBride, who is just so incredible in his pace, his ability to change a game. And then I like Derek Culver as well, his presence and the length of Culver. So I think that West Virginia does not get talked about enough. I'll give you a mid-major as well that's not getting a lot of attention, but I think they could make a statement, a win, maybe be in a second game. Keep an eye on UNC Greensboro. They have a lot of balance. They're a team that I think was able to challenge themselves a little bit out of their league. UNC Greensboro, they're going to be a double-digit seed next week. I think they're a very dangerous dog.
Winthrop. Mine's Winthrop.
Yeah, I love them too. Great call.
By the way, Winthrop, Shelby Mast, our buddy from Bracket Way, Greensboro, Winthrop, Liberty, all on that 13 line. All teams that could give fours a run for their money if they play them. And I'd bet one of those 13 wins.
Oh, I would on two of the three. I seriously would. I think we're going to see 12, 13 pulled off. I think we'll see a 14 win. In a year like this one, guys, where there's so much randomness happening in the sport, I think it only means that the middle of the sport is weaker. And some of these mid-majors are just as good as them, if not better.
John, you're very connected in the Big East. UConn's move has gone really well, even in a COVID year. I mean, look, the program seems as if it's at another notch now that it's in, having the year that it had in the Big East versus the American. Is there any talk whatsoever of a former Big East school looking at UConn and going, we should do what they did?
I don't think so, because Connecticut was in the American in football, and it made sense for them. They were losing money. So from a financial standpoint, it was a no-brainer. I mean, at the end of the day, this comes down to money. And Syracuse and Louisville left because of money. They got offered more money. They got offered football money. I think they look and their basketball coaches would move back to the Big East in a heartbeat. But I don't think these athletic directors or presidents would, because of the finances of the deals. And that stinks to say, but that's why this conference broke up in the first place.
Yep.
You became non-like-minded schools. The Big East has always flourished because it's been a basketball league. And that's what it's gotten back to here. And I know something that I've always told is, and about this story, Connecticut expressed interest to the Big East in around 2017, guys. At the time, the Big East said, we're not ready to just change this. We're a couple years into this iteration. We don't want to get back into the sake of expanding just for expanding. Can we talk in 2 to 3 years? Well, they ended up firing back up discussions, and everything made sense. I could tell you that UConn's exit fee, if they were ever to threaten to leave the Big East again, is so much money that it's never going to happen again. It's like when the Cleveland Browns came back to Cleveland, and they said, yeah, this is never going to happen again in this city. The Browns leaving town. The exit fee for UConn to leave the Big East right now would be an insurmountable number for them. So the Big East doesn't want to expand just to expand. It has to make sense. If Syracuse called, of course they would listen. But Syracuse is never calling with the football money that they get. The ACC has its own television network via ESPN, and that was a game changer.
Even though no one can watch the ACC network. And to John's point, David, the ACC did that. When they expanded, they put those exit fees at the same type of level that UConn is for leaving the Big East a second time, forcing these schools to stay.
Well, I think even with the ACC, it's more complicated than that. I think if you leave, your TV money for 5 years goes to the ACC. I mean, so it's so cost prohibitive, because let me tell you, Boston College needs to go back to the Big East desperately. It's affected their entire athletic department, the move. John, enjoy the city as much as you can. Have a great next 3 days of broadcast. Thanks so much for your time.
You guys got it. Hopefully I can make it to the Garden in time. I'm still trying to find ACC Network right now.
You're never going to leave the room if that's the case. John Fanta, follow him on Twitter, John_Fanta. It's a shame he's not enthusiastic about his job.
My new favorite interview.